So, Anna, you're just coming back from Black Hat DEF CON. How was that?
It was very loaded, a lot of information. I felt like at the end of it, my brain was completely dried with good things, right? It spent so much time trying to grasp as much as it can. And so I was done at the end of the day, but definitely an experience I want to continue to participate in.
Was this the first time attending both conferences?
Right.
I attended back in pre-COVID times, 2019. So it was the first time going to Vegas, and then first time going to Black Hat and DEF CON, and it was sensory overload.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
absolutely. It
just,
feels like that.
yeah. So I don't know how the numbers are, at least from attendees' perspective, after COVID, but 2019, right before COVID hit, it was a lot of people coming. I just got overwhelmed. I was just running around collecting T-shirts from the vendors. But I want to thank you for taking the time to sit with me and just having this conversation. Can you provide a quick overview of how you got started into IT and cybersecurity?
Yeah, absolutely. So, interestingly enough, I actually don't come with a bachelor's of either IT or computer science, as most people would think. Um, at some point in my life, I had to make a decision on what I wanted to study. I had a mentor who told me, Anna, you should go into IT. And I told myself I did not want to be typing my life away behind a computer, went into criminal justice, wanting to be part of the better good of humanity and achieve security in a different way. Eventually, when I got an internship in crisis management, physical security, it just started to come together. And I was working on programming access control, doing crisis management that sometimes involve IT or cybersecurity. And I said, well, might as well just start going into that path. And after a few moves in different roles like IT audit or field services, the person that comes and fix your mouse, I ended up in a role in security operations center and I never went back. I'm here enjoying it. And I truly believe that physical and cyber should be working hand in hand.
You mentioned a lot of great things, but the first one I want to kind of work backwards on is mentorship. So, where did you find this mentor? Was it a family member, close friend, or was it somebody that you worked with?
It was somebody that I worked with. It was a previous manager at a Mexican restaurant. She had a restaurant in which obviously it was a little town, little Hitchcock, and because I knew of certain things that I could do, I was able to help her with working on few IT things or bringing ideas into how to improve or make the menu more efficient. And she kind of started to begin up that I had some attention on computer use, and that's who recommended me to go into that. I think you're coming back to a very good point, right? Mentors are very important on the decisions that we ultimately take.
Everywhere I go, I always ask the team, do you have a mentor? I've heard different perspectives. Yeah, I do have a mentor and they're super helpful. Or others just ask me, why do I need a mentor? So I know everybody has different experiences, but I think for the most part, mentors kind of help us, navigate life, not necessarily just our career. So I think it's definitely important. So how did this relationship, this mentorship start? Was it just something organic? And I know it's really hard because you never go up to a potential mentor and say, hey, do you want to be my mentor? Unless it's within a business structure and you sign up to be a mentor, you sign up to be a mentee, and they kind of put you in those buckets. But just curious how that relationship started.
I mean, for the most part, it's organic. And to be honest, she probably doesn't know she was my mentor just because I didn't call her that, right? I think a mentor, for me at least, is someone that has your best interest at heart. And many times they may not even realize it, right? We need to have people in our corners. We need to have people speaking our name in rooms where we're not in them, where the challenge comes from a mentorship and mentee relationship is exactly that. there is no structured way on how to identify a mentor or a mentee. For me, the most successful mentors have been the one that provide me feedback, that help me become better, that give me guidance, whether it's life or work, without them necessarily knowing that they're having a big impact on me. I've had the opportunity to ask people to be my mentors because I want to get to where they are. But at the same time, when those relationships happen because we ask, they don't necessarily know us on a day to day basis. And so it's really hard to give guidance if I just meet with them once a month, right? It's just tell me how you got there. And then they're going to tell you the spill, right? That the mentorship hopefully happens organic for the most part. Or you make an effort as a mentee and you actively reach out and you actively want to seek out on that person and you share vulnerabilities from you, right? This is where I think I struggle. How would you address this in my situation? It doesn't always happen like that because at the same time, because we're looking up to someone, we don't want to be as vulnerable or maybe bring the ugly, right, to the table.
Those are definitely good points, but pulling the strings a little bit, how do you do that? Because I know a lot of people have come up, I've reached out to this person multiple times and I'm not hearing anything back. But what if it's somebody on LinkedIn that you're trying to reach out to, that you admire their work? What is, I guess, some best practices that have worked for you when you reach out to people that you want to learn from?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, there is much taboo about the things that we shouldn't do, but we have to be frank and come with hands clean, right? People approaching people in LinkedIn by default is going to be overwhelming, and I can already understand influencers for security, women, minorities that have succeeded, and we see them and we want to kind of get their feedback. The tough part on reaching out to those people is, and I've seen people reaching out to me just saying, "Hey, can you be my mentor?" It's like you're not giving me anything to work out of, right?
And
Best practices in general is be professional, be direct. Tell me why you want me to be your mentor, right? So if I'm reaching out to you, Danny, I'm gonna understand who you are. What do I see myself in you that I would like to build upon? And then also bring to the table, why do I think this is a good fit for you to have some time for me, right? So I would have to reach out professionally and say, "Hi, Danny, my name is Anna. So that you have been working in this specific role for so many years. I want to get more into it. I would like for you the opportunity to be your mentee. These are some areas that I would like to discuss with you." Have an agenda, because if you just reach out and scream to, it's like reaching out to the world and say, "Hey, I want a mentor." Who's going to respond? Like nobody. It's just a general message. It's not personalized to me to say, this person knows me and want me because of these specific things that they see in me to be their mentor, right?
yeah, no, that's great advice, Anna. So I want to go back to your career. You started at physical security and then went into kind of the traditional cybersecurity. So what was your first role doing physical and how did you get that role?
My first role was actually an internship, and I was an intern for global security, and that was the title. I got it because I was close to graduating, and I started working with my advisor to provide me with companies that had internship opportunities. My dad was working at the specific company that was providing internships. I applied, um, and that I don't want to say they loved me, but they did, and they kept me for some, not only for that semester, but they were actually able to extend the semester. Opportunities just happened to fall together, and I was hired as a contract administrative assistant, and then eventually moved into physical security systems coordinator. And just a building block for everything, right? An exposure to corporate, an exposure to physical security and IT, which I just think happened to be a great company to start my career in.
So then you started there, and then I guess walk me through the steps on how you transition into, I guess, more of the IT and cybersecurity.
I mean, hopefully people have seen my face out there on LinkedIn, But I want to say I'm a social butterfly. I like to talk to people. I'm not shy, and I have to be honest, I love the attention. So working in physical security and being part of the crisis management, I had a lot of exposure to the C-suite, from the CEO to directors that were involved in those tabletops and exercises. I called my Fridays my social Fridays because from around 1, if I didn't have work, of course, around 1 to 2 or 3, I was walking on the floors of corporate. I was meeting people. I was talking to members from corporate communications to legal to compliance to IT to cybersecurity. And on one of those, I did actually had the opportunity to reach out to cybersecurity and say, "Hey, I would like to get into cyber. Would you mentor me?" Funny enough, um, and I'm gonna have a hard time to remember how this exposure came about, but there was a person that took notice of me from cybersecurity who was not my mentor. And when an opportunity opened up, she reached out to me and she said, "Hey, Anna, I wanted to reach out. There is an opportunity." And it was very strange because I was not waiting or I was not expecting it. And again, I cannot remember how she knew my name, but she reached out actively to me. And that was just a wake up call because it was, I was very proud to know that they thought of me when I was not thinking of them.
Yeah, no, I think at least it tells me that, your effort in just talking to people, being that social butterfly, like you said, really ultimately paid dividends because now people are noticing you that, hey, here's Anna, maybe asking questions, being inquisitive. You have like a superpower to be able to, maybe not care what other people think. Hey, I'm just going to go talk to somebody. So then, did this person that took notice, did anything develop with them, or was it something, a different event later on that got you into cybersecurity?
Yeah, no, that was the one. So from bouncing to different roles. So I went from physical security, wanting to go into IT and cyber, got called up for another opportunity to IT audit. From there, I decided and I talked with my manager at the time. I said, "Hey, to be honest, this is not for me. Audit is just not an area I like to continue to pursue." And I want to also acknowledge there are very few managers that have your interest in their heart. And at this time, my manager said, "You know what? Thank you for letting me know. Let's see what we can do." I was able to move into service desk or field services, which is doing hands on fixing computers, reimaging, life cycle, all the hardware stuff. And I went into that. And when I was at that point is when I got the call from cyber. And when she reached out to me, I said, I was actually going to leave my company to go to a different physical security role because I had the experience. And when she called me and said, "There's this opportunity in cyber, are you interested?" I was breaking my heart because I was going to physical security senior role to where I was just going to be a starting in cyber. But I said, "I've been wanting to do cyber. This is the opportunity." And I took it. And so that's where I started my cyber career. And I want to say I'm very thankful for, again, people calling me up and thinking of me. It's those people have been the differentiators in my life as to where my career has gone. Sometimes we don't see in ourselves what people see in us. And when people call us up for those opportunities, I've been very blessed to acknowledge that although it may be scary, it may be unknown territory, if they see that we have the potential, it's the best move because we're going into something that we may not even think we were capable of, but other people see that those capabilities in us. And I've taken every opportunity that has been presented to me like that.
Just a couple of things just pop into my mind. I follow Gary Vaynerchuk, this kind of entrepreneur, social media, has his own marketing firm. And he mentions that a lot of we always say no to anything new. Looking back in my career, I'm a technologist kind of at heart. I've always loved technology. But when it came to social media, I'm like, no, this is just a waste of time. Back in '07, '08, now I'm kind of changing my thinking to say, well, maybe, right? And then also that we tend to be complacent because we don't like change or hard work, or we might become vulnerable because now we're going into an area that we're not comfortable with. So then, Anna, you started as SOC analyst, is that correct?
I started, it was a very short, I was doing governance, risk, and compliance, so known as GRC.
Yeah.
Very short, and probably 6 months within, I moved into a security analyst position. It just so happened to open up, and I started getting my hands dirty. It was right before COVID. And so
Mm.
when COVID happened, we were full on SOC mode, remote, and I mean, I remember working with my, I don't want to say teammates because they are friends now. We're working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the phone, all checking, by figuring out what was going on. Got promoted and just find my way through. And here I am with some years of experience being able to talk about not only cyber, but as well as physical, because again, I want to explain that one cannot survive without the other,
Mm.
and putting that connection, right? Because I know physical is to explain to cyber, hey, this is why physical is important, and vice versa, right? One of the best examples I like to have is you're not going to have your house with locks and cameras and everything set up, but your password being free to the world for the world to know because now you're vulnerable, and vice versa.
Right.
You're not going to have your house with great password and in the internet, great segmentation, great network monitoring, but leave the door open, right? So they have to work together in order for you to be holistically secure in any environment.
So I'm going to go a little bit off script here, just based on what you're saying. So one of the biggest issues, at least I know in my experience, is when we talk to folks that are not in our technical world, they don't understand anything we're saying, right? And you used an analogy about your home, leaving the door, the windows open. So what are some great analogies that you use outside of those that you just mentioned to bring down or I guess bring the awareness up? Because I think a lot of what's happening in probably globally is that you have the older generation being targeted by fraud, whether it's through the phone or on the computer with phishing. How do we get everybody's level of awareness higher or more attuned to what you and we're reading reports, we're reading threats, we understand what we need to do and kind of protect ourselves? How do we get the society to really care more about what we do?
You touch on something so important to just bring awareness, right? The majority of people are concerned when they think they have something to lose. And sometimes it's not about analogies. Sometimes it's about just breaking it down into the impact and the effect that something could have. I had the mom of a friend who had her phone compromised. Just
Mm.
her cell phone, she couldn't use it. It was email hacking, all the good stuff, because their password was the same all across everything. And so as I'm trying to help them recover some things and figure out what the next steps could be, they said to me, it's okay. They have nothing to steal. They're going to see my money in my account, and then they're going to say, you know what? I actually put $20 into the account. I said, while I know you're trying to be funny, that's not the intent. They're going to have access to all your data. And now it's not about the money that they could take from you, but the money they're going to put you in debt, right? Because now they have all your information. They're going to open accounts on your behalf. They're going to store your identity and use it for nefarious things. And now you could potentially even be on a no-fly list because of all the information they have. And until I didn't put it into that perspective, they literally saw that. I could see fear in their faces. My goal is not to try to scare you, but to make you aware that this is why password is so important. We don't say as cybersecurity people, change your passwords and not use them and reuse them just because we like to make life complicated, right? And a great analogy that I just thought of, you don't use your same key for your door at your home that you use for your car, that you use at work, that you use at your father's house, right?
Right.
It's the same thing. That's the password to enter into different places. And if the same key was the access to all of it, then they take one key and they take control over your whole life. So it's explaining those things to people to make them understand, but at the same time, don't just make them paranoid in a way, right? Give them the tools to learn how to solve that big complex problem. Because if at some point they were just thinking of, let me use one password and remember this one password. Great. You want to do that? Let's use a vault, right? Let's use the vault that you only use for this specific application. And now you have different passwords for the rest of the things that you use, right? It comes with education. And ultimately, I think all the problems in this world are a problem because of the lack of education.
Yeah, that is so true. But I guess my, playing devil's advocate, where do we go to educate people? Do we use, LinkedIn? That tends to be a professional network. Do we use TikTok? I just recently got TikTok, and it makes you question just humanity as a whole. It is, what is going on here? Is the older generation on these social media? So what do you think? What's the best approach to really raise that awareness? Where are they at, and how do we deliver that content?
Love talking to new people and getting people to ask me these questions, because now I want to do tomorrow what I should have done 3 years ago, right? So I was recently told by my co-host in another podcast that I should do my own podcast. And then I go to DEF CON, and then I go to La Villa, which is the village for Hispanics or Latin people.
Mm.
And all I saw was two women. And so I'm thinking, I absolutely need to do social media to educate people on the bare minimum that we need to start doing. And on the other hand, I start with my close circle, right? And sometimes my close circle come and tell me, hey, I know you work in cyber. What about this? And then I'm able to explain more. And I'm able to say more. And then hopefully, because they learn something, they start passing it to the next 6 people. And then those 6 people pass it along. It's not
Mhm.
as easy, and it doesn't it doesn't reach as many people as I would want to. But now you just gave me a great thing that if we want to advocate for clean security, for white hat, right? For us to, let's be more the good people than the bad people. Maybe part of our role as cybersecurity professionals is to go into retirement homes because they have access to internet and start
Right.
educating. Hey, if you received a text message that says USPS couldn't deliver your package, don't, right?
Mm.
Check directly with USPS, go directly onto the site. I'm glad to have these conversations because now not only you, Danny, and I that are talking and are hoping to get some ideas to do for the rest of the world, but the people listening, they're like, I didn't realize the need for this. Let me go and get it. I mean, I told my wife, I said, you have more charisma to be in social media. You entertain people very naturally.
Mhm.
Go and talk to them, and talk to them in Spanish, because we have a huge gap in Hispanics really understanding how impactful cybersecurity is in our day to day.
I think you mentioned a lot of great things here, Anna, that we might take offline to really discuss even further, because how do we help the Latinx community to bring up their technology IQ? I'm thinking a lot about this, and it just kind of popped into my mind because I'm part of Latinx Digital Leaders Now. It's a Chicago-based nonprofit organization, and it's kind of based on 3 pillars: on community, so reaching out and educating the community, the education route, more kind of K through 12, and bringing up, the future leaders of cybersecurity and IT. I'm here in Denver, and I'm involved with Metro State University in Denver, just providing talks to the students. But some of the professors and the deans are like, "Hey, we want you to teach." I'm like, "No, I have like no interest in teaching." But at the end of the day, we are
Yeah,
teachers, right?
right,
Maybe through our own podcast, it's a
right,
different form of,
right.
of teaching, right? And just having these conversations where hopefully they spark some type of interest on the audience to join us. One thing that you mentioned at the very beginning, that you didn't have the quote unquote traditional background, IT background into cybersecurity. I guess two questions. Why did you start that way? Why did you phrase it that way? And do we need to have a technology background to be in IT and cybersecurity?
I started that way because I had a conversation over dinner after Black Hat. And I was sitting next to a wonderful woman that I met there. And she said, I'm a nurse and I want to go into cyber. I said, absolutely great. She's like, but I don't think I can do it. I said, oh, well, you're already giving yourself the no before anyone else gives you the no. The reason why I started that way is because I want to talk to women, to anyone that is interested into cyber, to know that there is no traditional way, as some gatekeepers may put it. You talk to people and they say, oh, you have to get this and this and this and this certification. You have to have a bachelor's in this and this and this, and maybe a master's and a CISSP and X, Y, or Z. And by that, you hear it and you're like, well, I'm done. I have nothing to do here. I'll just go back to what I was doing. The most important thing that I want people to hear from me and that I will continue to advocate is that there is no traditional way, as some people may say, to start into cybersecurity. You could be a teacher and go for security awareness training because you know how to develop training, you know how to give training, you know how to talk to people and want to get them engaged. You can be just any person and be absolutely fascinated by research and be in an intel team. You can be in the threat hunting side. The majority of the people that hear cybersecurity think is you are this person with a hoodie, coding your life away, figuring out how to hack the rest of the world. And I'm like, you have to absolutely know no code to come into cybersecurity. We have policy, we have lawyers that specifically focus in cybersecurity due to the laws that are being implemented. And so my goal in saying that is for all of you listeners, if you're interested in cybersecurity, find what could you potentially be interested in and not related to your current skills. How could you translate that into our world? Because we need people, we need good people. And if you're passionate, and you said it at the beginning, Danny, if you are able to continue to learn, you're malleable, you can learn everything and anything you put your mind to. So don't give yourself the no before anyone else gives you the no, and go for it. You may get 10 rejections. You may not get any interviews in the first year or two. Keep at it. There's somebody that is going to give you a chance, just like somebody gave me a chance.
That's definitely great advice, Anna. But for some, it might be hard because maybe financially speaking, they can't wait a month or much less years. I remember when I was in Chicago last year at a conference, I met this woman and I forgot where she was working at. Maybe she was in education and she wanted to come into cybersecurity, but she wasn't getting anything because she didn't have all the certifications. And she ultimately said that, well, I'm going to have to go for an entry level position. And I said, no, no, no. You have transferable skills. You have communication skills. You have leadership, program management. But she said, I can't find anything. So it's a very hard situation. And I know it can be a perfect world for everybody wanting to come in into cyber. I guess my next question is, why are there gatekeepers, right? That if you don't know how to code, if you don't have a master's degree in cybersecurity, then we don't want to or need you. Where did that idea or mindset come from?
I'm going to be very blunt about this. We live in a current society where corporations have promoted people that may not even have a high school degree. And I know some, right? And so when those, I think, are the primary gatekeepers because they just continue to keep their job based on who they knew and how they eventually promote them to keep on moving. As a company, you don't necessarily always want to keep the person in the same role. And so those are the gatekeepers. And ultimately, those gatekeepers speak out of lack of confidence and fear of really identifying the full-on imposter syndrome, because it's not a syndrome. You are an imposter in a way, right? There are leaders that are out there that are not leaders. They were just put there because they couldn't figure out where else to put them. That's why we have to be very conscious and very knowledgeable when we're in hiring positions to give people a shot. You're not going to be giving out freebies, right? I'm the type of person that if I see your passion, if I see that you like to learn on your own, that you have a critical thinking, which I continue to say this in all the platforms that I'm given the chance. Critical thinking is nowadays in decrease hugely, right? And so those are the type of things that we're looking for. Not to mention, in my role in incident response, incident response is high stress. That is absolutely not for everyone. If you're not ready to sometimes just come in and say, Danny, I needed this report yesterday. Tell me what you have right now. And you're like, oh, well, good morning. I'm like, no, we don't have time for this right now. This report should have been written yesterday, right? Not everybody is fit for that. And that's okay. But that's why you have to understand where are your strengths, where are your areas of development. Find a good mentor, find the ways to fix yourself, be self-aware, and be able to prove what you're able to bring to the table. It's not going to be easy. It absolutely is not easy. But at the same time, networking, Danny, one of my co-hosts from the podcast says, your next job is going to come from networking. Because if you didn't know me at all, Danny, hopefully this conversation, it made you think of things. And God knows, tomorrow you're like, you know what? Anna will be a great fit for this. Maybe not me, but any other people that you found out there, right? Those networking positions, when you talk to someone where it's not a job interviewing role, you're able to talk freely and you're able to think, to see how people think. And you're like, this person is going to be good for this role. And then you reach out to them, just like we give opportunities to other people that may not necessarily be in cyber already, right?
I mean, you and I could develop the next billion-dollar cybersecurity company. So,
Absolutely. What are we waiting for?
so I'm definitely ready for that. But you mentioned a lot of great things. So one is leadership. And you even mentioned it at the start of the call that there's certain leaders that just don't take the time to really develop their people or invest in their people. When it comes to leadership, based on your experience, what are some quality traits that encapsulates being a good leader?
It depends on the personality, to be honest, Danny, because we're not always going to be fit for everyone, both when we're being led and when we're leading, right? And I think that's very I'm tired of saying it depends, but it really depends because we're human and we're complex. But for the most part, someone that is empathetic and that is able to understand that we're human is going to make a great leader. Another quality of a good leader is the transparency. I'd rather my manager tell me, Anna, you're messing up so bad on this, versus the end of the year, I don't know why I got graded poorly because my manager was not able to tell me mid-year that I was struggling with some areas, right? Transparency, empathy. But the most important thing is if your leader is focused on getting you to take the role, is going to be when you know they're not scared of your potential, right? You're not going to achieve half of the things that you want if you don't have people that believe in you. And so for me, if I'm looking for a great leader, which I would like to share that right now, I have an absolutely great leader that has all three characteristics, you're in a blessed position, right? I'm not the first one to say it. I've heard it many, many times. People don't leave roles, they leave people, right? And so if you have a great manager, if you have a great support from the top that understands you, that understands you're human, and that helps you get back up quickly when you got yourself down, you have a great leader right there.
Especially the empathy part. And I think we're missing that as probably as a country and maybe even globally. And then moreover, the lack of critical thinking, which we do not think anymore. We respond to, whatever is in our social media, and we either get happy or we get angry. And there's no in between, right? And we're not thinking. But I want to transition into the word of the millennia, or the phrase, generative artificial intelligence. So what's your take on that? Good. So we'll start kind of macro level. Good, bad for society, and then drill down, good, bad for cybersecurity?
I think you're going to continue to have what I say, but it depends, right? I mean, I think it's good. It's good for those that are ready to embrace it, that are
Mhm.
ready to learn from it and make it a tool that we can use as humans for the better of the world. Bad, because there's always bad people that sit back and just say, I've seen it, right? ChatGPT,
Right.
write a resume for this position, and they submit right away. That's bad for you. You just lost a potential interview opportunity because you didn't know how to use it the right way. It really depends on how we are as humans, and that's the complexity of the lack of
And
of empathy, of critical thinking, of everything that we discussed. Right? It comes full circle. If we understand what AI can do for us, let's do it for the good. Let's be better. Let's improve even our economics, right? Hey, AI, write me a budget for the rest of the year so that I can keep on track and not exceed my credit cards instead of, hey, AI, find me the cheapest things that I can buy out there and buy them for me, right? Like we just have to be better at doing what we're doing. This is not necessarily bad for society. We have to understand that with the change of every single era that this world has seen, when jobs are taken away, other jobs are created. We need to keep up. We can no longer be complacent in thinking that what I went to study in school is what's going to keep me alive in the next 50 years. That's not the way anymore. When we were born, we didn't have computers. Now we need them. We need them to work. We didn't have cell phones to live off of. Now we need them because they are truly a necessity, right? And so it just depends how we want to see these. And are we ready to evolve and mature, not only with my family, because they're also catching up onto Facebook with the rest of the world? Because, like you said, at some point, Danny said, no social media, no, none of this. And now you're like, okay, maybe, because now you have to start talking to people about cybersecurity. Possibly now we're
right.
going to be talking soon about AI. And how do we address those challenges instead of saying, this is never going to happen to me? Let's say, when it happens to me, how do I get ahead of the ball?
Definitely makes sense. Do you think AI is going to take our jobs in cybersecurity?
Not in cybersecurity. I think for the most part, they're going to make it either more efficient or they're going to create some automation there, but there will not be 100% replacement. And this is because we need critical thinking, right? And because there's going to be more attackers now, we have to become more efficient on how we defend. So it's not going to necessarily eliminate jobs. I think it's just going to be a shift on new jobs for cybersecurity professionals.
And to your point, increasing our critical thinking and creativity. Because then now the adversaries, whether it's nation states or cyber criminals, or even insiders, are leveraging AI, then we're going to have to think of new creative ways of using AI to augment intelligence. But at the end of the day, cybersecurity is not a technology problem. It's a human problem. And a human is going to solve the biggest challenges. And then just one other question in regards to AI, the data pool that is currently being used by these large language models, is it benefiting only one type of group? I'll just be blunt as well. Latinx communities or just underrepresented communities. A lot of that data might be bad data. There might not be enough data. So with that being said, how do we as a community position ourselves to make sure that our data is being represented, one, correctly, and two, empathetically, and also correctly so we can all benefit?
One, because we cannot erase history. The perfect example with that is when they talk about the amount of viewers and publicity that male soccer brings is not compared to women's soccer. Yes, absolutely,
Right.
because women were not allowed to play for how many years? So it's the same
Mm.
thing for Latinx, for Hispanics, right? We cannot even ask ChatGPT to provide us insightful, meaningful data that represents us because there was nothing to represent us. We were just zero to the left, right? As they say, or, you know, it's not even counted, right? As a digit. So unfortunately, that problem is going to continue to happen. And we continue to see it because we continue to be shut down in many areas, right? We continue to be not believed. And this is going to be something that I see, at least in many areas in my world. Latinx themselves make themselves little next to a different person. Let's just put it that way. I've seen that we reduce ourselves because we have this idea that other people are better than us. And so when we reduce ourselves, our voices are not heard. And that's why I want to believe that's why many people are saying, raise your voice, Latinx community, because we need to speak up. We have things to be said, and we have things that people need to hear. It's not going to catch up to us because we're not going to be able to develop movies as other people have developed movies or had the chance to develop movies, right? Our means continue to be, I mean, there's data there, right? Women get paid less, but being women and immigrant, you're going to be paid even less, right? And so that huge disparity is never going to catch up until, let me not say never, but that disparity is not going to change until our allies speak up for us, right? Until we're not able to say, me as a person that can help continue to do, hey, this is what I'm calling for the rest of my people, right? This is what we all need to do. And unfortunately, like you said earlier, Danny, not everybody has that capability to say, I'm not going to go to an entry level because that's not what I deserve, but I just need a job right now. I need to pay the bills or I lose my house, right? And it's much easier for recruiters, for hiring managers that want to keep you on the low end to say, sucks on you, someone else is going to take that job for less, right? Or for what I'm offering, instead of saying, Danny, you're worth that and more. Let me fight for you. So I hope that we're not going to be here to see it, unfortunately, but I really do hope that at some point AI is able to speak for us the same way.
Powerful words there. And I definitely agree with everything that you're saying. And at the end of the day, we have to speak up. We have to fight every single day. That's part of why I created this podcast. And, not to go into my background story, I never looked at the representation of the lack thereof. I was always just there to do a job, first in the military and then in the FBI. But slowly started looking over here, looking over there, and say, hey, what's going on here? I'm the only Latinx at this level, at this position. And then you start questioning things and why is this the case? I want to believe that within our lifetime, we will get there. I might be a viejito with great hair, even though I already have gray hair. Yeah. But eventually, I do have hope that we will be in a better place there. But with that being said, Anna, I always close the podcast with books. A deep learner, kind of later in life, when I was young, I refused to read. I never read books. So now I'm kind of making up for it. So what books have you recently read that you'd like to share with the audience?
So I read a book that hit home, and I'm going to share this one. I don't read, but I listen. I don't know if that's cheating. That's just my way of learning the books. But this book is called I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. And it talks very precisely about all the expectations that women in Hispanic families are expected to do. And I think it's a great explanation and an amazing way for people that are not in our community to understand how we're different. You may be going through those same experiences even if you're a firstborn, right? So I'm Not Your
Really?
Perfect Mexican Daughter is a great book that in a way helps heal other things. I am in this journey of self-awareness and self-discovery and trying to make this world a better place. And it starts with me changing, with me being more considerate, more patient, more helpful towards others, and understanding how the way that we talk has an impact to the rest of the people that we talk to. I would just like to give on that book. I've read a few others, but that's the one that continues to come up as I continue on my self-discovery journey.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And then just one last thing, how can people find you?
I'm not a social person publicly for either Instagram or Facebook. I do have a TikTok, don't post a lot. Hopefully we'll be posting about cybersecurity here shortly, but you can find me on LinkedIn as Ana Diaz, MSDA, and that's Masters for Data Analytics, if anyone was wondering.
And then, feel free to push back, but you also have a podcast. You want to share that?
I do. I thank you for that, Danny. So the other podcast that I am a co-host for is called Queer in Cyber. You can find me there. You'll be able to find my LinkedIn information, and that we're in Spotify, Apple, and YouTube as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard a couple of episodes. Love just the dynamics with everybody on there and just pertinent, relevant topics. But Ana, again, thank you for this opportunity. I know you're busy with work, with life, so appreciate the time and chatting here with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Danny. I like what you're doing and keep doing it because we need more of this.